cost behavior. If you were not in the last class, maybe you were in the other class. I think we started cost behavior, and we talk about how cost reacts to change in activity level. That is the way cost behaves. Then, in the course of it, we come into a particular cost, which is semi-variable cost. And that semi-variable cost, we said that particular cost has what? Both element of fixed and variable cost inside of it, inculcated in it. Then we are now saying that we are starting with the responsibility to share that particular cost, which has both element of fixed and variable. And I told you how you can actually identify, because sometime in the time to come, very soon, even when I was taking F5 last week, target costing, that particular thing appeared in one of their questions, which is the target costing. They're just trying to do cost estimate. In them trying to do cost estimate, there is when they will need to get the variable overhead cost and fixed overhead cost, and that cost is lumped together. How would they be able to do that? Is to apply that same thing we were treating here. It's a past question. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? It's F5 past question. I told you F5 is another level of F2, direct another level of F2. So in that question, they have that overhead in that way. How would you know if that overhead is semi-variable cost? I said you would see if it is fixed from the face of it. How do you see it? You will see that over the time, if it is per month, per quarter, or per year, you will see that the cost will be constant. That is fixed cost for you. And I said, how do you know if that particular cost is variable? I said, when the variable cost per unit is what? Constant. It's constant. That is. And how do you do that? You divide the cost by the activity level of it, then you get the variable cost over those periods. And if you can actually, if you have done that and you see that over that period, the variable cost per unit is constant over that period, then you know that that particular cost is what is a variable cost. Then if it is not, that is, if the variable cost per unit, which you have calculated, is not constant over that period, then you know such cost is what? Semi-variable cost. Then you have to what? You have to share. That is even another level beyond. F2 here, they will still have to tell you that you should do using I or something. That will be more glaring. But here, we now have to share the variable cost. I said it's very simple. Share the semi-variable cost. It's very simple. The first thing you need to do is to identify what? The highest and the lowest what? Activity level. And I kept hammering on that activity level, and I was able to prove to you with a past question which an examiner has given to students before. You know, initially, I think some people were saying that in as much as it is highest activity level, then the corresponding cost must be the highest. I said it's not always so, because there is a time that the corresponding cost of the highest activity level might not be the highest cost. Are we together? So what you should be looking out for in those activity levels and the cost is what? Is the highest activity level and the lowest activity level. If you are able to identify the two highest activity level, most times they give you just for the 2 period. If you are giving for just for the 2 period, lucky you, then you are not looking out for highest and lowest activity level. But when you are not given two activity levels, maybe you are given series of activity levels, look for the highest activity level and the lowest activity level. Then the next thing is now for you to do what? Look for the corresponding cost of those highest and the lowest activity level. The corresponding cost will be there. Then what do we do? I said that the difference between the cost, highest cost and the lowest cost, divided by what? The difference between the highest activity level and the lowest activity level will give us what? Variable cost per unit. Thank you very much. Variable cost per unit. If I'm able to get my variable cost per unit, then I said yes, we are close to something which is, we use this formula which we call y is equals to a plus x. We said this a represents our fixed cost, which is whenever I want to get our fixed cost, plus this my b will represent my variable cost per unit, which we have calculated before. Are we together? Then I said my head will be the activity level. So if you have this linear equation, then you can use it on either of those two activity levels that you have chosen initially to actually calculate your what? That is, all you just need to do is just slot in the variables which you have at hand. What are the variables I have? I have variable cost per unit. I am looking for A. Whenever I choose whichever of the activity level, that is, if I choose the highest, that means my head will be the highest activity level, and whatever corresponding cost will be what will come in Y. And I can now calculate just my fixed cost. If I'm able to do that, I said another thing an examiner can ask us to do is now to ask us to calculate what is the cost for a particular level of activity. Then if that is the case, all I just need to do is still use this. By then I would have my what? My fixed cost. I have my what? My variable cost. It's now giving us one activity level. We must have given us maybe 14,500, which is going to be representing this here. So I have this. It's now asking me to calculate this. So what else? It's just for me to do math, which is primary trigger. Then if I'm able to do that, then I calculate what is it in there. Are we together? That is very simple, and you are able to calculate. You are able to do that when I gave you like 3-4 questions last week, right? And you are able to solve it well. Thank you very much for that. But further to that, I now said there is now a time when we now have a step fixed cost. Are we together? In semi-variable cost. Step fixed cost. I told you that a step fixed cost is when we have another level of fixed. You know, fixed cost is supposed to be fixed. We said fixed cost is fixed within a certain reasonable level. So when this reasonable level is exhausted, then we step up and we say we have a step fixed cost. Similar thing happens whenever we are doing something like this. They are now telling us that maybe at a particular level of activity, there is now what? There is now a step fixed cost. In this example, let me just give you that example. Let me just call it forth. Then we can just quickly write it as a very simple example. I will use that to explain that, Mr. Kide, so that everybody can benefit from it. Yes, the following data, you can write. The following data relates to the overhead expenditure. The following data relates to the overhead expenditure. The following data relates to the overhead expenditure of contract cleaners. Relates to overhead expenditure of contract cleaners. Of contract cleaners. At 2 activity level, fine. That means all they've given us is just 2 activity level. And I'm good with that. So activity level is measured in square meter. You can just write square meter. Square meter. We have one of it. 12,750. That is just right, like square meter. 12,750. Is 15,100. Then we have the overhead. Overhead. Under 12,750, we have 73,950. 73,950. 73,950. Another 15,1, we have 83,585 in cost. $83,585.
What about 12,750?
73,950. 73,950. 73,950. Additional note. When more than 14,000 square meters, when more than 14,000 square meters are industrially cleaned, there will be a step up there will be a step up in fixed cost. There will be a step up in fixed cost of $4,700. $4,700. You are required calculate the estimated total cost. Estimated total cost. If 14,500. If 14,500 square meters. If 14,000 square meters are to be industrially cleaned. If 14,500 are to be industrially 14,500 are to be industrially cleaned. For those who are just joining us, and what they've had me say was one explanation that they didn't really understand what I was saying. You know, as I was saying it the other time, the people that would understand was the people that were in the class when we were doing it. I would understand. You say you didn't really understand what I was saying. So you can just grab from here what we wanted to do. At least it's still part of it. I said the first thing we have to do is to calculate our variable cost per what? After identifying, we need to identify, but here we have just two activity levels, so that will not be our problem because 2 is all that is available. So what do I do? The highest minus the lowest of the cost. Fine. In this case, we would have gone easily to do what we know how to do, which is minus the highest cost from the lowest cost. But we can't go that way. Why? Because if you note, I told you that you can only run your variable cost per unit over what? Over a linear movement. That is when the fixed cost is constant. That is when you can run your variable cost per unit. But when there is step fixed cost in between, you have to look for where there is what? Where there is no step fixed cost, which is that limit. And what I told you to do is to always minus what? The step cost from the higher, that is from whichever one is affected. 15,100, at 15,100, you and I know that at 15,100, fixed overhead will have increased by what? 4,700. At 15,100, fixed overhead will have what? Increased by 4,700. So what do I need to do to bring that about that cost? Because we understand that in that cost 4,700 is embedded. So we need to do what? We need to remove that 4,700. So what do? I minus 4,700 from, so we say adjustment of cost. So I do 83, what was that? 83 what? 585 minus what? $4,700. Will give me something. 78,885. That is the new cost that I've adjusted so as to suit in for me to calculate my variable cost per unit. So now my highest cost now will be 78,885, where there is no what? Where there is no step fixed cost. Minus 70 what? 73,950 over what? 15,100 minus what? 12 what? 750. So if I'm able to do this, then I'll get my variable cost. And that's going to give me what? Just give me the variable cost per unit, please.
490.
For what?
4,000.
This is 4,000.
4,000.
Eh?
Yes.
5,000.
4,985.
$95. And this is what?
2,000.
And at the end of the day, 2 point what?
1.
So here, you and I know that this is the variable cost for 1 unit. This is the variable cost for 1 unit. I told you that the simplest way to handle this, so that you can avoid complication, is to calculate the. Now, I'm not going into where you are having confusion. Is to calculate the fixed cost. That was our approach in this class, and it's still the same approach. In the study part, they use the highest level, where that means they use this. But I'm saying that it could be confusing. The better approach, which I adopt at any particular time, is to use the one that does not have what? That was not affected. Let me use that one. That was not affected, which is this level. You know, we can either use this for my y or this. Are we together?
Yes.
Then I said use this part. Then I said if you are using this part, that means the fixed cost that I will calculate, that is the fixed cost that I'm going to calculate, will be this fixed cost without what? Step fixed cost. So when I will now have to go and calculate for, the examiner asked me to calculate for 14,500. Then the fixed cost I will be using, there will be the fixed cost that is stepped off. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I must add that fixed cost, the additional fixed cost to it, for me to be able to use it in that. So the fixed cost now, calculation of the fixed cost. How do I do that? I said fixed cost. So I can do my y equals what is my y now? I said we should use this 73, right? 950. That's my y equals my fixed cost is what I'm looking for, plus my variable cost per unit, which is 2.1. That is my b into bracket. What is the activity level I'm looking for? 12,750. Like that. Are we together? So by the time I make my FC the subject of the formula, my FC fixed cost will be equals to what? Somebody please help me. 26,775. This is what? Without step fixed cost. Please, do we understand it?
Yes.
This is a fixed cost without step up. So and I said, because why? This fixed cost is where, we were told that it will step up after 14,400. So anything beyond 14,400, we have to use fixed cost, this fixed cost, plus what? 4,700.
Sorry, the 26,775 is 12,750 times 2.1.
Okay, that is.
Variable cost.
I thought you had given me the fixed cost. Time no day. I just oh yeah, do the fixed cost and give me the answer.
47,175.
The answer? One what?
47,175.
47,175. Thank you for that.